Well, for more on the latest developments, let's speak now to our correspondent in New York, Sherwin Bryce-Pease. Sherwin, a good afternoon to you. Now, we see reports that the former president invoked his right not to incriminate himself by taking the fifth. I think he did so some 440 times during 4 hours of testimony before New York Attorney General Letitia James and her team. We understand this has been confirmed by the AG's office. What are the next steps in this probe, Sherwin?
Now, Lady, I'll tell you about those next steps in a moment, but just imagine the scenario, right? The former president being deposed by the incumbent Attorney General of New York. This is a deposition, we understand, that lasted more than 4 hours. He invoked the Fifth Amendment 440 times, eyeball to eyeball, really not relenting. And the AG, in that getting an early sense that he was not going to answer any questions, not then releasing him, having him sit there through her many questions. One can just imagine a very tense standoff in that room. They did release a statement, the Attorney General's office here in New York, saying, while we will not comment on specific details, we can confirm that our office conducted a deposition of former President Donald Trump. Attorney General Letitia James took part in the deposition, during which Mr. Trump invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. So confirming what essentially the former president himself put out as he went into that deposition, informing people that he had no intention of answering any of her questions. Attorney General James will pursue the facts and the law wherever they may lead. Our investigation continues. Legal analysts we talk to say the next step is a likely trial. Remember, this is not a criminal investigation being conducted by the AG in New York. It is a civil investigation. So she is likely now to take her investigation to trial and use the president's invocation of the Fifth Amendment against him, essentially in a civil claim, which could lead to financial penalties down the road. I will also tell you, Naledi, that there is a parallel investigation being conducted by the District Attorney of Manhattan into the very same issues of allegations of tax fraud within the Trump organization. That criminal investigation is separate to the civil investigation being conducted by the Attorney General of New York. So we understand that both teams are in conversation with each other, but how we move forward here in terms of the criminal investigation remains to be seen. But very likely now the civil investigation by Letitia James likely now to go to trial.
Yeah, and then of course you've got publications like the Newsweek and the Wall Street Journal reporting that an informant tipped off the FBI that those classified government documents might be improperly stored at Mar-a-Lago, the former president's Palm Beach property, and that's what led to that search earlier this week. What else are we getting from these reports, Sharon?
Yeah, remember, we were asking ourselves all week what precipitated the need for the FBI to execute this search warrant, given the political overtures and overtones that are very prevalent around the United States regarding this search warrant at the Mar-a-Lago estate. And this now sheds some light. The reporting from Newsweek and the Wall Street Journal saying a few things, Naledi. The FBI received a tip-off from a confidential human source who was able to identify what documents former President Trump was hiding and even the location where these documents could be found. Remember, there's a lot of reporting about a safe having been broken into. That might be indicative of where these classified documents might have been held. This is, of course, a sprawling property. We understand the FBI knew exactly where they wanted to go, what they were looking for. So very confined to certain quarters of Mar-a-Lago. The raid was deliberately timed when President Trump was not going to be on the property. The Justice Department, though, this is important, the Justice Department does not comment on ongoing investigations. So this information is not coming directly officially from the Justice Department. This is the Wall Street Journal and Newsweek reporting based on sources within, we believe, the Justice Department. The former federal prosecutor, Niama Rahimi, really just explained to us, gave us a bigger understanding of all the legal challenges the former president is facing. This is what he had to say. Watch.
Charges certainly would be those related to the January 6th Capitol riots. And if the Department of Justice takes the case for prosecution, we know that they've convened a grand jury. The January 6th committee is referrals to the Department of Justice, but we still don't have any clear evidence that is going to prosecute Trump for crimes related to January 6th. We know that there's an investigation because of the search warrant, Presidential Records Act, and Trump flushing, tearing, and burning documents that were supposed to be maintained. Certainly a less serious felony, but a felony nonetheless that's punishable by up to 3 years in prison. And again, does have that disqualification provision. Lower is that civil lawsuit because there is no penalty. There's no chance of Donald Trump actually going to jail. The civil lawsuit is important nonetheless because money and evidence that comes out of that case could be used in a subsequent criminal prosecution. So it may just be the first step for those who want justice, whether civil or criminal, for Donald Trump.
Niyama Ramini, they're really laying out for us how a variety of legal cases facing the former president could play out. I just want to clarify that right there is the Presidential Records Act in terms of where former presidential documents and White House records are to be stored. That's with the National Archive. What the FBI search, we believe, is about the storage or the removal from the White House of classified documents. So this is a very specific instance that the FBI is looking for, classified documents that were not authorized to be removed from the White House. That is a very specific issue that they're looking at here, and the federal law makes it illegal to intentionally take classified docs to unauthorized locations, as would have been the case in the removal from the White House to Mar-a-Lago and Naledi.
Yeah, very interesting. But then, of course, given the fact that former President Trump really is still quite popular among conservatives in the U.S., is he, possibly mulling a presidential bid in 2024? Is there concern, perhaps, of even political violence as a result of these developments and investigations?
Yeah, two questions there, right? The first one is he mulling a presidential run? It's the worst kept secret in the United States and around the world that, of course, he is and has been mulling. He has been hinting about this in his political rallies around the country that haven't ceased since Joe Biden took over in the White House. So, yes, the president is expected to announce within weeks, within days, that he is going to be launching a bid for the 2024 election. But, of course, there has been a great deal of concern around political violence. I mean, if South Africa had a similar experience most recently with the incarceration of former President Jacob Zuma, that is not different in the United States. The FBI Director Chris Wray was asked this on a trip to Nebraska yesterday, and he called threats circulating online directed at law enforcement deplorable and dangerous. He says, "I'm always concerned about the threats to law enforcement. Violence against law enforcement is not the answer, no matter who you're upset with." There is, of course, online posts from right-wing groups that have directed hate against the judge that signed off on the search warrant. Right-wing groups have posted the judge's name, his address, his phone number, information about his family online. So the short answer is yes, there is growing concern that were President Trump to be indicted here, that the chances of political violence is very, very much acute, particularly in the aftermath of what we saw on January 6, 2021, during the transfer of power, the certification of those results on Capitol Hill, the insurrection, of course, that took place in order to subvert the peaceful transfer of power. So let that be our guide. It's certainly very much a possibility here in the United States, Naledi.
Yeah, Sherwin, thank you so much for that update. Let's leave it there. I know that you will keep us updated, though. That there, our correspondent for the SABC in New York, Sherwin Bryce-Pease.